Well, hello, and welcome to episode 57 of It's Never Sunny in Seattle, a Seattle Mariners podcast. I'm your host today, Evan James, as always, joined by Michael Ahedo. And today we are joined by the one and only, the notorious, the legendary writer for New York Daily News, your baseball writer, in this case for the New York Mets, but lookout landing alumni, Matthew Roberson. Matthew, welcome.
Thank you, boys. It's good to be here. It's good to see you through the power of the internet. I don't think we're anywhere near each other right now at all. I'm assuming you are both in the glorious state of Washington, whereas I'm in the other corner of this hellish country.
I am going to see you next month, though. I booked...
That's right. In the Big Apple.
Yeah, I booked my ticket. So I think September 23rd to the 1st. So...
Wow. Okay, sick. That'll be great. Yeah, I am not in New York right now. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, which is also not where the Atlanta Braves play. You may have heard. They are out in the suburbs. It sucks a lot. The whole situation is very bad. Yeah, I forgot too. / didn't fully know because this is my first time actually being here, and like I'm staying in the city, and then you have to go like pretty far away. Not like time wise, but like distance wise. I think it's like at least 10 or 12 miles. So you're like, they created, it's wild, dude. They created a baseball neighborhood. Like imagine if Safeco Field was its own neighborhood in like Shoreline. That's essentially what the Braves did.
In like a good way?
No. Well, I think for a certain group of people in Georgia, they love it. Right?
You can say it. You can say it.
Yeah, I don't know if this actually happened or if I imagined it, but I think the Braves, like when they did this move, they put out some sort of statement saying that it was like less urban. I believe that was the coded word they used. Yeah, but you should look that up.
I'm gonna do that. Yeah.
So they're in a different county altogether. And the stadium is actually decent. Like, I don't know what the consensus is on it, but it's a fine stadium. And like, there's stuff to do around the stadium, which in theory is cool, but not when it's like completely removed from the city. So when you get a chance, look up Truist Park on a map, and then you can kind of see like there's a baseball village, and then way over here is the actual city of Atlanta.
That's so wild. I guess, I mean, there's like Tampa Bay has their stupid ass set up in like I don't remember what it's called, but
St. Petersburg,
like where you have to, I don't know, there's only like one way in and out, whatever. But I am looking this up as we speak because this sounds awful.
Good. Yeah, I can give you some things that I've done in Atlanta over the past 3 or 4 days, however long I've been here.
Please tell us.
Have either of you been to Waffle House?
Oh, heck yeah. Heck yeah.
I haven't. I feel like it's
pretty good.
Really?
I mean, it's like the quality of food is not very good, but the experience is great.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay.
I did that today. That was my first time because I don't think they exist north of the Mason-Dixon line. I'm not. Maybe that's not true. But where have you been to it, Evan?
In Orlando, because I've been to Florida a couple times, and it's the only place where you can get like cheap waffles, but also smoke a Lucky Strike, and that's what America really is when you're in Florida, right?
Yeah, the waiter will like give you a Lucky Strike if you don't have one.
She'll bum you a Lucy.
It was sick. So I was wearing a University of San Diego t-shirt, which is the college that I went to, and the waitress looks at it and she goes, "Oh, are you from California?" And I go, "No, not originally." And then she just went, "Okay."
She hit the Pete Davidson accent out. Okay.
I think she was from California and wanted that to become a whole situation. But when I said not originally, she just took that as like, "Oh, I don't want to have this conversation." So that was kind of a bummer because everyone says like you go to Waffle House, you'll see a fight and like the waiter will say something crazy. I didn't really get that, but breakfast was like $12, which is amazing. And these times of Joe Brandon inflation.
Did you get the waffles naturally?
Yeah,
I did. The waffle was the highlight of the meal for sure. It's a very good waffle.
Did you get chickens? Some chicken?
No, I did not get chicken. The thing about
it's not Roscoe's, man. That's different.
Yeah,
that's true. I have been to Roscoe's too. Roscoe's is great, but
Roscoe's hits.
The other thing about like living at baseball stadiums for the past few weeks is that like I am eating terribly, so I didn't feel like chicken and waffles was a great way to start the day.
That's
You
fair.
got to get a waffle at least while you're there.
Yeah.
I was curious about that actually. What are some of the weirder quirks of your job that somebody might not know? Because like you just said, you eat at the stadium so much of the time. So like, is there any other kind of weird quirks like that?
Kind of, yeah. We're there mad early. Like for 7 o'clock games, we usually get there at like 3:30, which is nuts.
Yeah.
I don't love that part, but it's all for the players, right? The players are what drives this beautiful sport. So like, they want us to get in, do our stuff, and then leave so they can have their precious clubhouse back to themselves. I mean, you learn a lot about like, I guess, sort of the human side of baseball, like when guys get DFA'd and then come back 2 weeks later, and like, the Mets have this guy named Sam Clay who's been kind of that guy all year. Like he's on the roster, and then whenever so and so's done with their rehab, oh, sorry, Sam, you're gone. And then when the next guy gets injured, Sam Clay, guess what? You're back. I don't even know if he's pitched in a real game yet. He was like taxi squad for a little bit. So that stuff is just like kind of interesting to watch because you realize like, oh, like you're a person and like you don't know where you're gonna be. Like you don't know what your job is tomorrow. You probably don't even know where you're staying. Like if you get DFA'd, you're in limbo, right? It's not even like just go to Syracuse in the Mets case. It's like just kind of hang out. He probably like lives in a hotel, which is tough.
Yeah, fuck.
So that's not, my favorite part about it. You learn a lot about like the fashion. Oh my God, Major League Baseball players are not well dressed at all. It's really bad.
No drip.
No drip. Well, it's two schools, right? It's the Latino players have a lot of drip, but it's like nothing that I would ever wear. It's very like outlandish.
Like the Felix type. Yeah.
Kind of. They love I would call them chode jeans. They love those. With like, a lot of very tight, ripped jeans, a lot of white jeans. Do you know the company? I think it's called Psycho Bunny. I was introduced to that this year through many of the Dominican players.
I don't think I make enough money to buy whatever clothes those would be. Just
exactly.
Like, I don't.
That's the other thing. You see what they're wearing and you're like, you look bad in my opinion, but also like if that shirt was $5,000, I guess that's cool. Right. Chris Bassett is a big Dan Flashes type shirts. Like a lot of very, very weird patterns.
That tracks. And then there's like Brandon Nimmo, who like.
Oh my God, yeah, that guy.
I've
already said too much. Today, okay. I promise I'm not just trying to make this like, and I think you should leave podcast, but literally today, like less than an hour ago, I saw him in the sloppy steaks outfit, white jeans, literally, bro. White jeans, blazer, t-shirt under the blazer with the Jesus piece, hair slicked back.
God.
I would not say it was pushed back, but very much slicked back.
I was going to ask if it was pushed back. Oh, God.
Yeah. So then you also get like some... I know. They're fun. They are fun. I was just talking about this with another writer today, like as I was complaining. Like at least it's not like the Reds or the Royals beat. That would be bleak right now.
Yeah.
But
at least, it's interesting instead of a bunch of squares, right?
Right. And every team has squares, right? Like even some of the good players are square, but like the thing that I like about them is that they like are very comfortable with who they are. Like they're firmly in the no drip category. They'll just wear like imagine like every baseball player at your high school, like they just have never grown out of that fashion. Like wear hats everywhere, which is not a bad thing, but they're just like sometimes it's literally like the plain hat, just like a black hat, and like
the fucking Rob Lowe NFL hat or
whatever. yeah. This hat supports hats. That's the concept here.
It's like the hats with a picture of a hat on them.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put that past big leaguers, but yeah, you see, just like, I guess what's the term here? Like the veneer kind of goes away. Like you realize very quickly, like, okay, these guys are either not that cool or they're trying too hard to be cool. So like, I think the general rule of thumb, I think, is there's like one guy on each team that you would actually want to hang out with.
If you could, if you could go back and speak to a young Matthew and be like, I am going to be covering the beat for the Mets and you could only tell him like, you know, the coolest thing about the job and also like this sucks shit, what are those two things?
That's a great question. I think the sucks shit part is that going to baseball games doesn't become exciting anymore. That's definitely the biggest bummer, because you feel like you're going to work. It would be a lot different if we didn't have to get there so early, but like getting there at 3:30 and then going down to the clubhouse and hearing whatever Buck Showalter has to say for us on a given day, that part is fun. I'm not lumping Buck into the sucks shit category, because Buck, for all of his quirks, like he will give you something to write about, and B, like he doesn't do the like, oh, we're gonna take this one game at a time. Like he kind of speaks in riddles. That's the funny thing also about like the difference between the Mets and Yankees, because for anyone who maybe doesn't know who I am, like I'm not the full-time Mets beat writer for the Daily News. I'm just doing the job kind of in an interim basis. But in the first half of the season, I felt like I was doing way more Yankees, and like everything is just so different. Like the colors are so like that, like matters, because the Yankees are so like dark and kind of ominous, and like it's just like our colors are dark and white sometimes. And then with the Mets, it's like we wear a lot of bright orange, and our mascots are like a hot couple, and the manager is this weird like old like Southern wizard kind of guy. So that part is funny to compare the two. But yeah, the thing of like showing up to a stadium, like today is Thursday, the day we're recording. Like it was Jacob deGrom versus Max Fried, and that part was cool. Like I was excited to go watch that game, but then I was also like, oh my god, like it's like clocking in for a shift at the sports writing factory.
Yeah, that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
Has it changed your relationship with baseball?
No, I still like baseball. What's funny is now I like watching baseball on TV a lot more, because when you're up in the press box, you're kind of removed from a lot of things. Like you can't see the strike zone. That's the number one thing. It's impossible to tell. And you can't really see movement on pitches. You can kind of gauge, what the pitch is. And now all the scoreboards tell you. Like a lot of scoreboards have exit velocity now. I don't know if Safeco has that, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's been new for me. But yeah, I like watching on TV now, because you can like kind of digest the game a little better. Whereas like the press box, not that I'm complaining about being in the press box, but you're like up too high to really, I know. You can see like there's cool, like you can see in the dugout, which is always fun. Like after Brett Beatty's home run, you can see the dugout like going ape shit, which was very cool. And like you can see a little bit of the managerial wheels turning. Like when you get in the late innings, you'll see the manager like go talk to the pitching coach, then go to the bullpen phone, and then you see who's getting up in the bullpen. Like that stuff is fun. But also like with the internet, like none of that stuff really matters as much anymore. Like the dirty little secret of sports writing, especially with baseball, is that you really don't watch the game that closely, because the internet will just tell you everything you need to know. Like I don't keep score because the internet keeps score. Like back in the day, it's like if you missed a play, it was just gone. So like you really had to pay attention. Whereas now it's like, oh, I missed that play. Let me just pull up the video of it, which is available in like 10 seconds.
I just follow on my phone anyways when I'm at the game, which I think is like kind of annoying probably for people I'm with and also me. But like I like being able to see like, pitcher CSW and stuff on Baseball Savant and everything.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's they're both good for what they are.
I will say, to answer the other part of your question, the fun thing, like the thing that I would tell young Matthew, is like learning sort of the idiosyncrasies of Major League Baseball players is hilarious. Like yesterday, we were talking to Pete Alonso about his decision to play for Team USA in the WBC. And you guys can see me, but I've not gotten a haircut in a very long time. So I've been wearing hats a lot. And yesterday I was wearing the 1975 hat, like the band, I was wearing their merch. And Pete Alonso stopped mid-sentence to be like, oh, cool hat. I like that band. And then started talking again. I was like, oh, first of all, like that was very like human, like very normal person reaction. And also like Pete Alonso likes the 1975. I would not have
it seems like
put that
a surprise.
I was very surprised, because his whole thing is he loves like classic rock. And, there's some quote from like, I think it was his coach at the University of Florida, where he was like, Pete just wants to put on Led Zeppelin and take his shirt off. And I was like, yeah, I've learned that about him.
I would have clocked him for like a Luke Bryan type of fella.
Pete's more eclectic than I would think a lot of people would guess. Because the other thing you forget is that a lot of these guys are so young. So like young people are kind of like exposed to more music than maybe, Gen X.
Yeah, isn't Pete Alonso 25? He's 25, right?
No, he is. I just looked this up because I believe he's 27 because Brett Beatty is now the youngest position player on the Mets by 5 years. They are a very old team, which is also interesting because they don't have the I feel like with rookies, they're probably a little more like wide-eyed in the clubhouse, whereas the Mets are like, oh yeah, we've all been here before. Like the Mets,
and they had Cano
pitching staff. Yeah, the Mets pitching staff especially is all like dudes in their 30s.
Yeah. And I was, I sent you the tweet earlier. I was wanting to know, because we know that fucking people of color deal with some shit at games. We saw Daeshik Kim last year, basically get his ticket checked multiple times a game. That video went viral. Bradford was tweeting about, on several occasions getting his credentials checked and like being on the field and getting his credentials checked, which is fucking wild to me. But, as a black beat writer, have you had any sort of, I'm sure you've had like weirder interactions, but any kind of sus experiences?
Yeah, I've never had anything overt like what Bradford was talking about, which is obviously, very disappointing to see. But I think for me, because I also I don't dress the same way that most sports writers do. Like, I'm very much like, I'm going to wear my normal clothes. Like, I'm not going to become a fucking polo shirt guy. So, like, I'll just wear normal clothes. I wear, like, jewelry a lot. And it's not so much people being like, oh, let me check your credential. It's a lot of just, like, looks. I think it's a lot of, like, and I'm younger than a lot of them, too. So it's a lot of, like, who is this guy? Which I've become very accustomed to. I'm fully the who is this guy? Because I'm also new at the job, right? Like last season, like writers weren't even allowed in the clubhouse anyway. So I kind of just like appeared one day, like at the start of this season, which is my like second season, I guess technically doing this. But this year was the first year where I could actually physically be there. So I kind of just like, showed up one day. And for some players, I think, they look at me and they're like, oh, this is like a peer. Like he's around our age and he's, not doing the like old school sports writer thing of like walking around with a notebook in your hand and like there's just like there's some tells, right? Like a lot of it is clothing, a lot of it is the way you carry yourself, a lot of it is also just like I don't know, I probably shouldn't say too much about this, but like I think with a lot of sports writers from generations above us, they operate in a way of like, oh, I just need to get my quote. Like, I'm going to get a quote here. I'm going to get a quote there. So they're like bopping around the locker room being like, let me get one thing from this guy, one thing from this guy. Where it's like, if I want to talk to a player, I try to talk to them as normally as possible. Like not make it super obvious. It's like, hey, can you just give me one sentence to put in the paper? Like, I feel like that's kind of the main difference. And I hope to see, more young people, more people of color, so we can kind of change that, because I think it would benefit everyone, right? Like the players definitely don't love like,
that's stupid,
55-year-old white dudes in their face all the time. So there's definitely like a weirdness to it. Go ahead, Evan.
You're less mysterious too, because like with somebody like Divish, no offense, but like kind of the aura he gives off is that he's kind of like in his ivory tower writing about the Mariners and comes down to like check on people and get a quote like you said, but you're much more personable. You're also, obviously you said with the age gap, but I did want to ask you that we had a listener question about comparing and contrasting the fan bases between like New York, and obviously you've done both the Mets and the Yankees now versus the Mariners, but I wanted to tie that into kind of what Mikey was talking about with a little bit of like the racial tension, because the Mariners played in LA a couple days ago and there were people saying racist things, frankly, about Luis Castillo's hair and some other stuff. JP Crawford too, I believe. And
really?
The Mariners don't have the Mariners don't have tons of that. So what's your gauge on kind of the general tone of the fan base and the relationship that they have with the players and how that might be different?
Yeah. Wow. First of all, I did not see that. I have been very, disconnected from the Mariners, which we can talk about, but So yeah, there's that. And also, I'd just like to point out for the record that they were not in Los Angeles; they were in Anaheim, which are two different places. I have to bring that up. Anytime the Angels are brought up, I have to bring that up.
I lived in LA, so I should know that too.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Mets and Yankees fans are definitely sickos, right? Like, there's no doubt about it. But the thing about them is they will never, if you're playing well, they will. It's the old thing of like, I don't care if they're black, green, purple, blue. Like, if you're playing well, you're a god to them no matter what. If you're shit, then that's where you get like, really horrible things said to you. Frankie Montas today. I mean, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is going through it. Like, this is actually an interesting thing. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is, at one point he was hitting like 270, which 20 years ago people would be like, oh, great job, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. Like, our 9 hitters hitting 270. That's great. But now I think fans are a little smarter than that, which is good. And they realize that like his batting average is not very indicative of who he is as a player because he doesn't walk and he doesn't hit anything but singles. So they've been coming down on him a lot. And his defense isn't what a lot of fans expected. He was supposed to be the like stabilizer in the infield, and that hasn't totally been the case. So like he was, I don't know, you guys probably saw this. He like some fan DM'd his dad and was like, "Hey, your son is dead."
Oh my god!
It was horrible. It was truly, truly horrible. He sent Isaiah Kiner-Falefa's dad a DM that said like IKF shot dead in the Bronx, and his dad freaked out, obviously, like as any parent would.
Fucking Christ!
So like shit like that is horrible. But the thing that I also thought of is like Joey Gallo was also famously a train wreck in New York, and because he is not only white, but he's not only white, but a very specific type of white, if you know what I'm saying. He's part of the family, if you will. He didn't get, at least I didn't hear of him getting any death threats, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm sure he talked in some article about how like he never goes outside in Manhattan because he's huge and like people would recognize him right away.
He's fucking
like,
6'10".
Hey, fuck you! What? Yeah. Hey, Joey! Hey, fuck you,
Gallo.
Yeah. So like that obviously sucks. Like I wouldn't wish that on anyone. But also like I think there's no doubt that if you're white, you have it easier, right? That's how America works. I don't think anyone who is paying attention, they wouldn't argue with that. So that has come to my mind recently, especially I haven't seen the Twitter backlash at Frankie Montas, who I know did not have a good game today. But like if he has another one of those, it's going to be bad. Like that's just how it operates. And then the flip side of that is if Frankie Montas has like a amazing September, then they'll love him, right? Then it's like, oh, Cashman did it again. Oh my God, look at this. So like that's the most kind of infuriating thing about New York sports fans is how reactionary they are. I think that's the best word for it is like, because they also watch every single game, which I guess you can like give them credit for, like not to like compare how people consume sports, but like they will watch it a lot. So like they know their shit. And that's why like if they think you're bad, you're going to hear about it. Cause it's like, I don't care if you went 2 for 4 today, you're, 5 for your last 70. Like we don't care. Like a lot of places, I think, there's a lot of casuals in other stadiums where the fans show up. They're not even really there to watch baseball necessarily. And they'll just like clap for whoever. Whereas Yankees and Mets fans, they're like, I'll let you hear about it. And for the Mets, they've been so good that there isn't really one of those. Like there's no Isaiah Kiner-Falefa on the Mets. Like the closest thing would probably be Eduardo Escobar, who's like so kind of joyful and personal that the fans haven't really even turned on him yet.
Yeah. Well, there's also that, I think Patrick Dubuque, I don't know how to say his last name, wrote about, I think Gallo and getting booed, at the stadium. And like, obviously fans are making players perform worse too. So it's just like such an ass backwards kind of thing. Like I'm never surprised, when players go to New York and they struggle. Like, Sonny Gray had nearly a 5 ERA in Yankee Stadium. Obviously, part of that is the short porch and everything, but also, it's hard to perform there, and the fans don't make it any easier. So, yeah, it's such a weird thing.
It's also amazing too when people come out of it. Like Edwin Diaz had, I thought, the best season I would ever see from a reliever in 2018 when he was with the Mariners. Then he goes to New York and is horrible, right? And the fans did hate him. They were very horrible to him. And now he's having a better season than he did in 2018 in New York in a pennant race. So it's like you can come out of it and then you're a fucking god, right? Like Edwin Diaz is probably has the highest approval rating of anyone on the Mets.
Your perception's obviously, you're in tune more than I am, but I still see negative things about him. Like he's a choker and whatever. It's so weird. Like he's striking out over half of hitters that he sees right now. Like literally like 52, 53, 54%. So like
he's as automatic as it comes, right? Like the joke about Rivera is that he was the unanimous Hall of Famer because all the writers loved him because they never had to do any sort of like rewriting. It's like, oh, Rivera's coming in the game. This game's over. Let me send this story out. Diaz, I feel that way about Diaz now. When I see him come in, I'm like, this game is over. Like, let's go home. So I think the fans who are still like, oh, this guy's a choker. Oh, he can't play in New York. Oh, whoa. Like, that's just like, that's Mets. That is your brain on Mets, right? Like, that is, you are poisoned in the head if you still are watching Edwin Diaz in 2022 and think he sucks.
Absolutely sick in the head.
They are, though.
The New York fan base is sort of like baseball fandom distilled, right? It's everywhere else it's like 60-70%, and then New York is 120%, where everyone's just, they're all in, they're watching every game, paying attention to every pitch, they're harassing every player on social media, like you name it, kind of. And it is different here. I think that the Northwest in particular, I think the Seahawks actually have kind of changed the Seattle culture, where we are a little bit more gung-ho and die hard, especially with like the beast quake and the whole, like, back when it was Quest Field, it registered on the Richter scale. Some of that kind of stuff sort of broke the ice for Seattle being more excited about sports and about baseball. But there is definitely a more lackadaisical attitude here. There is still stuff like, Marco getting harassed last year a little bit when he had his baby and didn't pitch well. We do see some of those things, but my feeling is that that's more where we are as a culture and society at large than in baseball specifically. But it is interesting to see New York, where the heat is cranked up to 11. And it's kind of funny for the rest of us because, obviously some of it is really unfortunate and really horrible. But some of it, some of the memes that have come out of it this year have been pretty funny. The Joey Gallo memes, the TikToks and Twitter things, those are hysterical. And that's beside the fact that the Mariners are doing the whole Seattle Mariners tweet from, a couple of weeks ago that made all the rounds. So we think this is kind of funny, honestly. But it is definitely a paradigm shift.
It is funny. And that part is also kind of hard to deal with, where it's like, like I was seeing all the Joey Gallo stuff and like objectively it is funny. And then you like go in the clubhouse and you're like, oh, there's Joey Gallo. Like that's the guy right there. So it's like, that makes it less funny, I guess, when you like see him. And yeah, I think with what you were saying about like the lackadaisical nature of Northwest fans, it's kind of funny because like I feel like for so long when you would go to Mariners games, it was like people were there, people from Seattle or from the greater Seattle area would go just to kind of like hang out. It's like, oh, it's summer in Seattle, let's go hang out in the sun. And the crazy people, the ones who were like really invested in the game, screaming, were usually the traveling fans who were like coming to go see the other team, right?
Dodgers fans, Blue Jays fans, yeah.
That is the exact opposite in New York. It's like the casuals will be fucking Jessica from Manhattan who just like wants to go to a Mets game.
Jessica.
And then everyone else is like locked in for every pitch. And Jessica, who like lives in New York, is the one who's like not as, it's the exact opposite of what happens at Safeco Field.
Did you hear JP or hear about JP getting yelled at?
Oh yeah, no, fill me in on that.
It was basically, it seemed like someone heckling several players, but the two in specific that like got it the worst, it's like surprise, was JP, when he was like saying something along the lines of like nice long hair, like you need to cut that off, and some other shit. And then I think someone told Carlos Santana to go back to the DR or something like that. Yeah. I didn't hear that. I saw that, but just fucking, it's a joke, that like day sitting in his seat with his brother is getting like harassed multiple times in a day at one game. And then there's this guy fucking literally harassing, racially. And like I didn't hear him get kicked out of the game. So yeah,
Huh. So you're telling me that Angels fans are bad?
I know.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the first
Actually,
I'm hearing of this.
What's interesting about LA is that stadium, for whatever reason, I don't know what it is, but most of the time when I watch baseball live broadcasts, I don't hear hecklers. But routinely, when I watch Angels games, specifically the Mariners playing the Angels, obviously, I can hear the hecklers. I don't know if they have a microphone closer to the stands or
it seems
something,
like
but I
it. Yeah.
routinely hear
Yeah.
the hecklers there.
Yeah.
I was
really
nodding
loud.
with you the whole time because I caught the end of one of the games this week, the one where whatever game Julio hit the opposite field home run at the end, and like the game really got away from the Angels in the ninth inning. There was someone who was right next to that microphone the whole time, being like, "Find the zone." He was like yelling at Jimmy Herget, who is like, "That's not the reason your team sucks, dude."
Tell Trout to come off the IL.
Jimmy fucking Herget.
Oh man, we have a listener question here. Moss, which I guess is more, wants to know, how do the Mariners stack up in a 5 or 7 game series against the Yankees?
Oh boy, I think I was actually just having this conversation with Dave Roberson, my father. They match up way better with the Yankees, way better with the Yankees than they do the Astros. I think if the Mariners play the Astros, season's over, right? Like, wrap it up. We had a good time, but we're not beating the Astros. The Yankees, they won. The Mariners won 2 series against the Yankees without Julio. Like,
yeah,
that's pretty fucking cool.
That's fucking wild. I mean, who
Yeah.
are they missing? Stanton.
Yeah, the Yankees were without Stanton and Rizzo, I believe, for those series. But Rizzo's back now.
Okay.
And,
Rizzo played one of those series.
Okay, yeah, and then the Yankees
Yeah, I
bullpen
think
is
he's
kind of in
leading her.
flux right now. That's why you're getting so much Albert Abreu content.
Oh, yeah. Holmes is on the shelf with something.
Holmes is on the shelf.
Elbow
Loizaga been pretty bad. Chapman is like good now, but bad in every other aspect of his life. So who knows what's going on? I haven't followed the Yankees in a while.
Yeah, I didn't know Loizaga was not like the relief he said he was last year, and I looked into it a little bit, and I don't know. He just like is throwing pitches that aren't as good, and in place of pitches that are better.
Right. He should just throw good pitches.
I think he should probably just throw good pitches. I don't know what the Yankees are doing.
I'll get in his ear. Once I'm back in New York, I'll be like, hey, have you? Jonathan Loizaga also, I can give you one nugget on him. There was one day where we were in the clubhouse, and like the thing about being in the clubhouse pregame is that none of the players are ever there. Like, they're off in like the back rooms where we're not allowed, But there was one day where we're in there, and like, when there's nobody around, you kind of just like look around and you like kind of, see if there's anything interesting happening. And Jonathan Loizaga had, I think it was either 2 or 3 cases of Fiji water delivered to his locker. Like,
what?
He drinks bougie water, this man. Yeah, that's the only thing I can tell you about Jonathan Loizaga.
It has to be out of a square bottle, otherwise he can't taste it.
I mean, Fiji water is good, but like,
it is really good.
I just don't feel like that's something that you like need to do. Like, it seems like very unnecessary to have it delivered to the city. Because also, like, if it gets delivered to your locker, like, that leads me to believe that you paid for it. Where it's like, you play for the New York Yankees, they'll get you whatever water you want. Like, why are you paying out of pocket for bottled water?
Yeah, it seems silly. But yeah, I just, they seem like such a hot and cold team, just the nature of hitting for power, there's just more ebbs and flows. And obviously, like, your baseline is higher. But, I mean, also, like, their cleanup hitter is Josh Donaldson, he's been like a league average hitter this year.
Yeah. I remember I picked the Yankees to finish 3rd in the division. I put that in writing. I thought Toronto and Tampa would be better than them because looking at their lineup before the season, it was like, okay, Judge is good, Stanton is good. But after that, it's like, Rizzo is fine. He's not the player he used to be. And then everyone else, I was like, I really don't see it. Like, Donaldson is a perfect example where it's like if he plays up to his full potential, he's pretty good. Right. But like, he has injury history. I think he's like 36 now. Like,
yeah, it's like fucking turning 37 in a couple months.
Yeah, it's crazy to assume that he could be like a middle of the order bat in New York too, like where things happen, and like he already got himself into some situations this year because he's
Racist.
a very specific type of person. There we go. So yeah, I mean, I think the team that I expected them to be is showing up a little more now, and I think like you can really chalk up the first half of the season to like sometimes that just happens in baseball. Like sometimes you get really really hot, and then you feed off of that. Like I think the team chemistry was pretty good at the beginning of the year, and now I don't know. I haven't been in the Yankees clubhouse in a while now, but I would imagine that it's a little more tense than it was in May and June.
Their roster looks like it's not going to age well. I'm just looking at like roster resource. Like
You
well,
took the
Mayhew's
words out of my
34.
mouth.
Yeah, Judge is gone. Judge is 30. And I think actually that was a listener question or a question that we wanted to ask is about his future in New York, if you have any insight in
I have
terms of
no sources at all. This is just straight from the dome. I feel like if he was gonna stay, he'd be locked up already. That's kind of my take on it, right? Like the Yankees letting this
They
drag
didn't
on for
lowball
so
him by
long.
accident.
Right. And just letting it drag on for so long. Like you could have done like, you know, we can get into like the ethics of what the Braves do where they give these young kids a lot of money right away. And like, you know, the players should get more money than that for sure. But also if you're like just purely from a business standpoint, like it's good business to have good young players locked up for a long time. And the Yankees could have done that with Aaron Judge 4 or 5 years ago, you know, and they didn't. So now they're going to pay for it. You know, not actually, but
I'm very pro doing that. And you're right that the ethics are complicated because, you know, like Kevin Mather himself came out and said that, you know, we took advantage of Evan White. Well, did you? Because Evan White hasn't played in the major leagues and he's making this money. He's on this contract and he gets a roster
right.
spot, whether or not he plays. I understand I agree with the whole like players, you know, should hang on for their value. But at the same time, just you know, I'm a Kyle Lewis fan. Having watched Kyle Lewis go from the 2019 Rookie of the Year to where he is now, my attitude is like, take your money where it is, boys, because you don't know if they're going to come back with a second offer. Jared Kelenic, the Mariners could be paying Jared Kelenic on $100 million contract right now, and instead he is the worst player in Major League Baseball. So
it wouldn't even have to be that, though.
You never know.
It wouldn't even have to be $100 million. Like if they gave Jared Kelenic the Michael Harris deal, like that would be fine. Michael Harris doesn't even have to be very good for that contract to like work. You know what I mean? Like he's making $9 million a year. Like that's not that
like
much
a
for
war,
Major League Baseball.
like one war. Yeah.
Exactly. And they bat him in the bottom of the order. Like they don't expect much of him. Like he's like a defense first 7, 8, 9 hitter, and they gave him $72 million, which I know sounds like a lot, but then when you break it down over 8 years, it's like that's a pretty good deal.
Right. Yeah.
Let's talk about the Mariners because this is a Mariners podcast. And as much as we loved, I love hearing about other teams and other stuff because just the way that, you know, baseball has gone for me recently being on 2 Mariners podcasts, I have such a narrow scope of things beyond the Mariners. But let's talk a little bit about the Mariners. I want to ask you specifically, Matthew, the Mariners are having something of a coming out party this year, being pretty good, having, you know, the Rookie of the Year nominee in Julio, who's obviously one of the most exciting players in all of baseball. What is from your New York perspective? I can't do accents. I'm not even going to try that. From your New York perspective, what was that? I'm going to cut that from the video. But from your New York perspective, what do the Mariners look like from a distance? What is the impression of them from a fan base? Stop it.
Yeah, it sounds like from The Office when Oscar is like, he's like doing that Southern accent. That's really fucking bad.
I can't do it. This is why I never tried to replace. It is. I never tried to replace New York guy on the podcast. It wasn't going to happen. But
oh man,
what does New York think of the Mariners and of the season they're having so far?
I don't know what New York probably doesn't think of the Mariners at all. Besides that one guy who was screaming, into his phone. Who is a legend. I would love to meet that guy. I'll try to, you know, pull some strings and
what guy
come face to face. The Seattle Mariners, the guy who like went viral because he was like that guy is like definitely younger than all of us, and he's like, my blood pressure has never been higher. I'm like, this guy needs to go to a doctor. He needs to
Right?
stop
He's,
watching
like,
the Yankees.
Clearly like 22 years old.
Yeah, and he's talking about his blood pressure. So that guy definitely cares about the Mariners. But I think, like, I don't know. I don't think that, like, a random guy in the Bronx wakes up every day and he's like, oh, the Mariners. But I will say Yankees fans were very upset about not getting Castillo. So that's kind of a fun little thing for me, is like, oh, the big bad Yankees couldn't get the best pitcher on the market, but you know who could? The Seattle Mariners. And that has been fun to watch.
Baby. Yeah.
I think for me personally, my take all year, even when they were bad, like when the Mariners were playing poorly, I was like, this is a good team, right? Like, it's one thing to be playing bad when you have bad players. Like, we've seen that for 20 years with the Mariners. But this year, it's like, okay, all of these good players are playing badly at the same time. And that was the issue. So that's why I was pretty optimistic the whole time. I was like, this can't continue. Like, we're going to see some positive regression. Like, Robbie Ray has been pretty good. Everyone was ready to ship him out of town after like 5 starts. I think people are a little more understanding of what Suarez is now. Like, I think there was a consensus amongst the fans that he needed to be like peak Nelson Cruz, and that's like, he's not that. He doesn't need to be that. But I think once we like kind of figured out what this team is, there's also a lot of new guys, and for Mariners fans specifically, a lot of guys that they would have like never really seen, right? Like Suarez and Winker and Frazier were all National League guys. Like, no one really knew who they were. I mean, Robbie Ray has like been in the league for a while, but kind of anonymously, I feel like. Like, I didn't really pay attention to him until he won the Cy Young, which is a crazy thing to say. Like, he was kind of like that guy in Arizona who had no command, and then he won the Cy Young. Like, that's kind of my experience
fucking
with
wild.
Robbie Ray. Yeah. So I'm high on the Mariners. I don't think they're gonna like win the World Series, obviously, but for me, if they get to the playoffs, seasons of roaring success. That's all I'm gonna say on my
1000%.
like, because I think for a lot of people, they want, once you get a taste of success, you want more and more and more, and it's like, we have to understand kind of who this franchise is, right? Like, I don't think Jerry DiPoto thinks they're going to win the World Series. So, like, a guy in Issaquah should not expect them to win the World Series. You know what I mean? Let's
specifically.
Let's baby steps until we see some playoff experience from these guys. Because that was the other thing I was thinking about today, is how many guys on the Mariners have been in a playoff game. It's like maybe one or two.
Man,
I think it's like one guy.
Very
I don't
few.
think so. Yeah.
It's Castillo, and which means probably Suarez and Winker.
No. The Reds haven't been in the playoffs for a while.
Yeah.
Really? Okay. Yeah.
The Reds haven't been in the playoffs since like Brandon Phillips.
No. I think it was like 3 years ago, because I was looking into it.
COVID season.
Yeah.
No, you're right. They did play in COVID playoff games, but I don't really count those.
Yeah, I don't really fucking count.
But you are right. They did. The Reds did make the COVID playoffs. You are right.
So
your point stands, though, that the Mariners have no playoff experience, right? Like, essentially,
Adam Frazier.
He might. Because he was only on the Padres for like 20 minutes, and they didn't make the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
So he definitely didn't make it with Pittsburgh.
I think Matthew and I were pretty famously the only optimistic people in the Slack, and I similarly like view this team pretty highly. I think it's frustrating to go games where someone will pitch a quality start, like 2, 3, 4 runs given up, and like that's all that's allowed, and then the Mariners just don't score enough runs. But like, when you look at their lineup, really the only below average hitter is Adam Frazier, and Adam Frazier showed last year that he can probably be a league average hitter. So I think it just comes down to depth and making sure that the starting pitching is doing their job. But like, I don't know. It's a pretty with Castillo, it's a pretty complete team, and I think that they're like, I think what we talked about after the deadline was like, not only does Castillo, I think, push them into the playoffs and like assure that they get into the playoffs, Matthew's cracking a second brew.
Yeah, I didn't know how loud that was gonna be. Yes,
It
I
was
am.
pretty loud.
If my bosses are listening, I paid for these with my own money. These are not being charged to the New York Daily News. Don't worry.
We'll see. But I consider the Castillo trade a success if the Mariners make the playoffs. And I think not only does he set the team up, to get into the playoffs, but if they get into a wild card series, that's a 3-game series where like George Kirby has very quietly been the best starter on the team since I don't remember who posted the leaderboard. It might have been you, Evan.
Yeah. Over the last 6 weeks, has the second highest WAR in the American League to Justin Verlander at 1.5. He's a rookie who threw 60 innings last year.
Right. And what I was going to say is
insane.
If not for Julio, Kirby is getting a lot more Rookie of the Year buzz. So like it's good to have two of those guys on the same team, in my opinion.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt. I thought I had a bug on my screen. It was a mouse, on an ad. Anyways, but yeah, like tough. I think we've talked about Kirby and just like adding a sweeper, which hasn't been amazing, but adding a sinker and like getting better as the season goes on. Gilbert has struggled more as the season's gone on himself, but now you have Castillo, Ray, and then a third person. Like, who is that? Is it Kirby? Is it Gilbert? Is it a mix? But like, that's a pretty fucking good 1, 2, 3 to put out against the Yankees, who like, I don't know. Do they have like, who are they putting out? Like, I'm not very worried about like Nestor Cortez. Like, I know that
completely agree.
He can spin a good game, but like Garrett Cole is really the only starter that I worry about. And they traded Jordan Montgomery. I know that we're talking about like the Yankees specifically, but like that's supposed to be one of the scariest teams, if not the scariest team, in the AL. Obviously the Astros.
Right.
But,
well, the thing is, the Mariners probably wouldn't play the Yankees in the wild card series because the Yankees would have to collapse super hard to not get a top 2 seed. So the Mariners would only need those 3 pitchers that you said in a 3-game series to beat like Tampa or Toronto, which I think is pretty doable. And then if you get the Yankees in the second round, I'd feel pretty good about that because, like you were saying earlier, the Yankees are so home run reliant. They talked a big game all year or all offseason about like, we're trying to get more athletic. We're trying to find more contact. That's why they didn't want Correa or Seager or any of those guys, and they chose Kiner Falefa instead because they wanted contact-oriented guys who play defense. And it really hasn't panned out very well. Like they still have a lot of guys who are very feast or famine. Like if you look at the bottom of their order, because like I would imagine that Donaldson would hit like 6th or 7th in the playoffs, right? They can't keep riding him 4th. So if you get past the big guys, then you're just like, okay, it's Donaldson, Kiner Falefa, Jose Trevino, and Aaron Hicks. Like, that's not scaring anybody, right? It's like you can pitch around Judge and Stanton if you know that those 4 guys are coming later. And like Benintendi is kind of like Adam Frazier, like in the fact that he's like a very good player for sure, but he's not someone who you go in and think like, oh, we got to watch out for him. You know what I mean? Like he's going to hit his little, he's going to get base hits, but he's probably not going to like win a playoff series for you. So basically Aaron Judge has to do a lot.
The more that I look around, and specifically, I look at the Blue Jays and the Rays, like they also don't really scare me. The Blue Jays, you're worried about Manoah. You're worried about, there's a second pitcher.
Gossman.
Gossman. But the third is Ross Stripling, who I like.
Or Barrios, who's been Barrios has been awful. I think they would still use him in the playoffs. Yeah.
So he's probably the third. But and he is obviously getting better. But then, with the Rays, it's like McClanahan, Kluber. I think we talked about this in the Slack. I have heard Drew Rasmussen enough times for me to think that is how his name is actually pronounced. I don't know.
Sure, yeah. I don't have a Drew Rasmussen take, but are you saying You thought his name was Rasmussen? You think that's
I thought it,
how it?
no, I thought it was just Rasmussen, but no, people are saying like Rasmussen,
Oh, okay, interesting.
and I don't
Yeah, I
know.
don't
I don't
know.
know.
I
I
don't
guess I need
care
to
at
look into
all.
it.
He's
Also,
not
don't particularly care, but yeah,
right. He's not
it's
someone
just
I'm
a
worried
weird thing.
about.
Yeah.
But good for him,
Um,
almost getting the Felix perfect game and then not getting it. That was very cool.
LOL. I'm gonna look into this for us. I know that we
We
all
had a
care a
Okay.
listener
lot.
question specifically for me. They wanted to know if the Mariners make the playoffs, how deep of a run do I think they can make? I would echo what Matthew said, which is that the Mariners should be looking to win the first series, with whatever wild card contender runner up that they have to face, be that, Cleveland or Tampa Bay, whatever. And then they should be hoping they get the Yankees in the second series, because if they get Houston, like you said, the season is over. Um, I just don't want to play Houston, both because they're going to peg our entire team, which seems to be their whole MO now, is that both the Houston and Los Angeles are just going to throw at the Mariners every time they play. When did the Mariners get a reputation for like being bad boys, by the way? Because we are like the sweetest, most innocent, childlike team in all of baseball, and we have this reputation that players need to hurt us to put us in line. I don't understand how we got here.
I feel like as a podcast, we should go on record and say George Kirby throwing at Jose Altuve was not a good thing.
Correct.
Because it was pretty. I don't even. That was the game that Julio did. I was gonna say got thrown at, but really it was just Rafael Montero just threw a fastball up and in, or maybe not even a fastball, and it hit Julio in the hand. I think that might have been the game that he got hurt, but like, I
Yeah.
don't know. Doesn't a wild pitch warrant throwing at a player? And I think Altuve got hit kind of like up, like in the delt or shoulder or something like that. So it is really weird how this is kind of happening, and I think it's really fucking amusing. I was watching the John Boy breakdown today of like the Angels fracas in the ninth inning, and you can just see. I think they must have been up quite a bit, and Haggerty stole third, and Winker was just going ape shit in the dugout, just like laughing and just doing like the kind of thing. I enjoyed the shit out of his antics. Also, it is Rasmussen,
Dude.
I think, and he's from Puyallup.
Okay. Oh, no way.
And yeah, apparently went to high school in Meade, Washington, which
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't fucking know. You
Small
know
town.
where that is?
Yeah,
Is
I
this
know
by
where Meade is.
Spokane?
I mean, it's Eastern Washington, but ish, sort of.
Mount
Huh.
Spokane High School. Anyways, yeah.
Well, we're at about an hour. Mikey, do you wanna talk Matt Brash and dig into your article? Last thing for today.
Yeah. I mean, we can also do it when it releases next week, but I think I can at the very least tease it. And more than ever, I think I specifically want to talk about Matt Brash because Zach Gottschalk in the Slack was saying that
Drag him.
very negative things. Yeah, so I was again, a lot of I think you should leave memes being used, and I'm trying to make Zach palm the dip here. So essentially, it's really interesting because like when I think about a pitcher that a stuff plus pitcher, I think what you look for is like, are they throwing in the zone enough? Are they throwing a third pitch to limit the times through the order penalty? And technically, I guess he did because he throws a curveball and a slider that are somewhat similar, but early on, he didn't really show those things that like make you feel good about him being a starter. Like the command was pretty, even though he was effective in his first game, like the command was pretty iffy. It was kind of all over the place. I think he gave up only like, a run or with like 6 strikeouts, something like that. But I think what ended up happening with him is that hitters don't chase or didn't chase and they were hitting pretty much everything hard. So despite all of his pitches good traits, they just weren't performing, because I would say he has good raw stuff, was not performing well at all. What happened, I think, in Tacoma, and I don't know if it was intentional or not, but the reason why the reason why he's good is because he throws from a low release, gets down the mound, a lot, and he throws, sweeping breakers. Something that happened when he was down in Tacoma, or at least it was like the beginning of a trend that, started getting accentuated when he got the call back up here, is that he lowered his release, which I think, I'm trying to remember the exact, it's basically like his vertical approach angle on his fastball moved from like 4.1 or 2 to like 3.8, which makes it like a Paul Sewald fastball, like an elite fastball. The other thing that he did was he set up a little bit closer to third base, just in a more neutral position, which if you're thinking about, Matt Brash, like he throws a sweeper or two sweepers that have a ton of glove side movement, a ton of sweep. Getting out towards third base and like getting, his arm out there and his release out there creates an angle towards home plate where if you think about like horizontal approach angle, the way that the ball's entering the zone horizontally, it accentuates that sweep. And so I think basically what we're seeing, just to kind of sum it up here, is his fastball has been, I don't remember what the percentage is. He wasn't throwing fucking nearly enough strikes with it before, like probably 40% balls, probably higher. And now it's much lower. So his fastball is performing much more. The curveball, well, I guess specifically the curveball, now the slider's playing down, but the sweeper shapes are sweeping even more. So at first I thought it was maybe not legitimate and that it was the velo that really helped him, the little bump in velo that helped him do what he's doing now. But now I'm pretty convinced that he's like a legitimate, I don't know if I want him with the bases loaded with 0 or 1 out, because he could walk a guy. He's still got like a legitimate, 12% walk rate. And I should pull up like a rolling graph. But now he's got swing and miss stuff, and I think he is a legitimate pitcher. Did he give up a home run? Has he yet?
No, he hasn't given up a home run in relief.
It says you're lying. Oh, that was before. That was that was when he was starting.
Would I lie to you?
Maybe.
If there's anyone who I would trust with very specific Matt Brash stats, it's Evan.
I'll take that as a compliment. I would trust you with all the Pete Alonso drip details, for the record.
Yeah. I have a question real quick. Do you think Matt Brash would make the playoff roster? Like, would they bring him to a ALDS?
Do they have to contract their rosters from September for the playoffs? It's the same, right? It's still 27 or 28 players.
They get for a playoff roster, it'd be 20. Oh, for a playoff roster?
Because it's 26, and I think playoff. I don't know what that.
Yeah.
I was talking
in September. In September they'll expand, but I think for the playoffs you go back to 26. And I wonder, because I feel like with the bullpen,
the only person who would take a spot is Matt Boyd, right? That's who it would be.
Yeah, boy, I completely forgot about Matt Boyd.
Haven't we?
Yeah, Giles is gone. But like, I was thinking as you were talking about like the relievers that I trust, like kind of the hierarchy of relievers I trust on the Mariners, right. And Brash is not totally there yet for me for obvious reasons. Like he's a child, and the stuff is kind of. I feel like his stuff is almost too good in that like it moves too much sometimes. That leads to a lot
I've
of
thought
walks.
about that. Yeah.
But
so for me, it kind of makes more sense. Like, if he can't command it and it sweeps a lot, I think when you're closer to the third base side, I feel like it spends more time in the zone, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. It gives the illusion of being a strike way more.
Right. For longer. But yeah, you were going to say something.
Oh yeah. Just the hierarchy of relievers I trust. Cause I feel like it's Sewald, Munoz I would put in the same tier as Sewald. And then there's a little bit of a gap for me. And then you get into Swanson and Murphy, who I really like as regular season relievers. But the idea of like Ken Murphy pitching the 7th inning of a playoff game is terrifying.
Yeah.
Just because he was what, in AA last year? Like, so that's why I'm wondering, like,
fastball get fucked up.
No faith in Castillo?
I love the big boss. Don't get me wrong. But he is so not fun to watch. Like everyone on Mariners Twitter has said this. It's not an original thought at all. But watching him is a struggle. Like he can be really good,
Yeah.
and he had one really good stretch this year where he had I want to say 15 innings in a row without giving up a run. But I think I would almost rather have, as far as leverage, I would rather have Swanson and Murphy above Diego Castillo in high leverage spots. But in the playoffs,
and
maybe because actually here we go. Diego Castillo probably has the most playoff experience of any Seattle Mariner.
Yeah.
I'd bet. Straight up.
I think we found our guy.
That's true. Thank you, Rays.
I've been begging the Lookout Landing people to write an article on him, just because I think at the time of the trade, everyone's like, oh, he's been struggling. And I was like, fuck off. He's proven for 3 years now that he's, I don't know, elite, but somewhere around an elite reliever. I think something has changed with his arm slot that has changed, the amount of sweep that he gets on his slider, where he legitimately isn't as good anymore. And I think that's why we've seen him, struggle. So he's definitely in my I would put him in terms of vibes. I would put him in the 4th tier, but I think he's probably somewhere around, I don't know.
It's Murphy a tough question. That's why I wanted to ask you guys.
I honestly don't know.
All those guys are roughly the same, right? All of those guys have elite stuff, but can occasionally come out and not be able to locate it to save their lives. And we see this with Matt Festa too, where he'll just get shelled or he won't throw strikes. And they're all the Mariners. This incarnation of the Mariners has the most lit stuff, pitches, velocity of any bullpen I've seen in my entire life. But God, sometimes they cannot throw strikes, and that's just how it's going to be. And I think they've chosen, hey, 70% of the time our bullpen is going to come in and dominate, and 30% of the time they're going to give away the game for free. And it's just how it's going to be. But what's interesting about
that's,
go ahead.
There you go. There you go. I don't want to.
I was going to say, I agree with your point. You said Diego has had arm slot changes. I think he is both old enough and has thrown enough in terms of career-wise innings that I think it's safe to believe he is past peak, and we're viewing some kind of diminished version of him from 2 years ago. You know what I mean? I think that's a fair assumption to make.
Yeah. There's some really fucking this year, I don't know, I'll just pick a random pitch. For his, let's see, let's just go with his 4-seamer. His release point is 5.8, feet above the ground. In 2019, it was 6.4. So it's really, 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 that's half a foot. That's really fucking significant.
Do we think maybe he's getting shorter? Have we considered that?
I haven't. You could probably measure him if you ask nicely, since do the Mets play the Mariners this year? Probably not.
They already did.
We did earlier this year, yeah.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah, the Mariners were the first team this season to beat the Mets in a series.
Did you cover it?
Heck yeah.
I did not. I think that was when I was at my sister's graduation, but I remember thinking it was very funny.
Yeah.
Because that was also, they sent Jared down the day before, so we didn't have to play in New York.
Oh, yeah, that's probably a good call. But yeah, I think someone needs to get to the bottom of this.
Mikey, can I ask you a Matt Brash question?
Please. Also, I just want to say I'm an idiot for leaving Lookout Landing a month before they got press credentials back. It's really fucked up.
But congratulations to the squad on getting press credentials. That is truly amazing.
It's true. Yeah.
It's been really good, actually. I really like some of the writing that Grant and others have done with their exposure. John as well. Kate, of course, and Isabel. Mikey, I wanted to ask you, so one of the issues that I have with Matt Brash, and obviously you just went over some of this, is that my impression watching him is that he has not improved anything. That what we're seeing now is this is what it looks like when he's being properly utilized, and we can pull the plug as soon as the command goes away. What I'm asking you is, do you see underlying statistics, anything that lets you believe that he's made meaningful strides forward, and this isn't his newfound success isn't just the result of Scott being able to pull him after 3 batters because he doesn't need to go longer?
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was talking about. Is I think like metrically his pitches have changed. I'm starting to move a little bit away from raw pitch movement and a little bit more towards like vertical approach angle and horizontal approach angle, because raw pitch, like a really good example is what we talked about with Eno last week, is Max Scherzer throws a slider with like 3 inches of sweep, and Matt Brash throws a slider with like, 14 to 16 inches of sweep. Scherzer, because he throws sidearm, his pitch, and probably because he's more towards third base, his slider enters more. It's actually more of like a cutter, like a slutter. It enters more horizontally than Brash's, which is insane. So I think they just do a little bit of a better job of folding in a lot of factors like, release point, mound position, velocity, arm slot, that raw pitch movement like doesn't. And so I think that is evidence, like these things that I'm starting to look into, and you can read it at Baseball Prospectus and probably next week. The fastball's coming in flatter because his release point is lower, and probably the horizontal approach angle, it might be better too. But I think getting the sweepers to sweep across the zone, kind of like I was just saying to Matthew, like I think they're spending more time looking more alluring to hitters. So I think he's been mostly what he's been all along, but now, he's just accentuating those skills. I will say, the fastball is legitimately better because it's flatter, and the breakers are legitimately better because they're coming in at that angle. So the command, I think, hasn't improved, I would think. And there's probably, like, I can pull up MLB pitch profile, MLBpitchprofiler.com. It's pretty imperfect. It's actually quite inexact, but it has stuff plus and command plus, for pitchers and based on their pitches. And I would imagine that based on where he's locating, he's probably around league average, and that's the case. Yeah. Fastball is 100, command plus, sliders 109, knuckle curve is 108. Holy fuck, these his slider and knuckle curve are like literally off the charts in terms of stuff plus. But yeah,
Average
I think
command
he's
will work
legit.
for him. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
tight.
Oh,
like
for
100%.
sure. Do you,
Yeah.
Mikey, do you still have hopes that Brash can be a starter?
Yeah, I think Durs has been wondering about that lately, and I kind of think maybe in like the Rays-esque role, where like someone's piggybacking. I don't know if he can go 3 times through, because once hitters see him twice, the third time it's like, okay, I'm just gonna sit on the fastball or something.
Right. You just eliminate some pitches completely. Yeah.
And like his changeup, like metrically, it's really, really fucking good. It seems like he doesn't really have feel, which makes sense. I think from the arm slot, it's pretty hard to turn over, a fucking changeup, even though Luis Castillo can do it. So yeah, I think they should give him a chance next year. And I think based on what they said when they converted him, Service is like, we just want to do what will be helpful this year. But I think it also might have been an excuse for them to not get as much blowback, and also for them to just like,
Right.
because they know he's going to perform better as a reliever. So I think it's a thing where it's like, once he is a dope reliever, there's like, oh, well, he's a dope reliever, so we're going to leave him. And, it's the same thing that they did with Edwin Diaz, and, that turned out pretty all right. So I was pretty down on him after he got sent down, and I was like, I honestly don't know if this can work at all. And now I'm kind of think he can be something of an elite reliever. So, which he has been since he's been called up. So eat shit, Zach Gottschalk.
There it is. That's what I needed to
There
hear.
it is.
He palmed the
I agree with
dip.
that. I want it to be known that I agree with that on all things Zach related. I think he needs to straighten up and be nicer to people.
He does.
He talked a lot of
not live in
smack about
Spokane.
Byron Buxton earlier this year, and I won't stand
Yeah.
for
Oh my
that either
God.
because that's
He
just
did do
asking for
that.
trouble. Just
I
like,
remember that well.
why poke the bear like that? Byron Buxton
I'll
is
never
a
forget.
savage.
I'll never forget that, and I'll always bully him for it.
Good. You should do that.
I will.
Byron
I
Buxton,
fucking
I
will.
believe, is from the great state of Georgia, where I have lived for the last 4
He
days.
is. He's a Georgia boy.
Something to think
He
about.
is.
Kyle Lewis as well. Shout out Kyle Lewis.
Georgia boy Kyle Lewis.
By the
A
way,
lot of baseball
Matt
players
Brash,
from Georgia now.
Matt Brash, his rolling 7. Actually, that doesn't make sense. His rolling 7 game, which is randomly picked, walk percentage is 7.7%, which is very fucking doable. So I will also take that. I think, yeah, I bet he settles in at like 10, maybe. We'll see. I mean, if the stuff's good enough, but he wasn't getting chases before, and he is now. So I think he's legitimately improved, and I think he's back into the conversation, maybe of being a starter in some facet. So
I like it. Matthew, it's 1 a.m. where you are. Should we let you go? Do you have any other questions for us today?
Do I have any questions? Why don't the Mariners wear the teal jerseys anymore? That's a big question
Because
I've
they
had all
have
season.
terrible fashion sense. And don't get me started, because I will go off on this for hours. But the Mariners,
Me too. It really bothers me.
it's just they have sick options too. They just don't pick
They
them.
have so
kinda
many
don't think
options.
that
They
they're
could mix and
good.
match with the hats, and they never do that either. They never do
I
that.
don't. Oh, the teal brims are so good. I will say I don't love the what do we call it? It's not teal.
Northwest Green. Shout out
Yeah.
Kevin
Which is a
Martinez.
lie.
Kevin. I was
Yeah.
gonna say Kevin Mather. Oops.
No, reverse shout out to Kevin Mather.
I will say I have gone on record, and let me know if I should like eat shit, but like Gotti. But I think that the Mariners should go with a pretty hard like rebrand and go with like the late 90s Sonics forest green and red.
Ooh.
I think would be actually, yeah, like that. I think it would be fucking sick.
Yeah,
and
Evan is wearing the 01 All-Star Game jersey for the listeners.
The evergreen.
Yeah.
Evergreen is like the actual Washington color anyway, right?
It's
not
way
teal.
more
It's
fucking
evergreen. Makes it.
So
yeah,
I don't
I like
know.
that
I
you
feel like-
you came with a real idea, which I like. A lot of times people will present like that they don't like something. They'll like, oh, fuck this, I hate this, but they don't have a real solution. You have a hard solution here. You already have the color palette in mind. My high school, shout out to Eastlake, was forest green and maroon, which was very fun. Or crimson,
yeah, see, that's
I believe,
good.
is crimson and forest
Yeah.
green was the official branding.
You went to Eastlake,
But yeah.
really? I didn't know this.
Sure did. Wolf strong, pack strong, baby.
I went to Skyline, so we beat you in football, but my girlfriend was from Eastlake, so it was okay. I can't hate.
Oh shit. Okay, we'll talk off pod.
Yeah, we're not gonna get into any of that on pod.
Let's see.
But yeah,
I don't really have anything else. I'll shout out the Georgia Aquarium was sick. Shout out to Georgia Aquarium. If you want to see some weird little guys, go to the aquarium. Any aquarium. There's so many weird little guys at an aquarium. It's so fun. Like I know we're trying to wrap up, but like think about how many fish you've seen in your life and then go to an aquarium. You will see quadruple the amount of fish you've seen previous to that point. You know what I mean? Not only in terms of species, but just volume of fish. And the Georgia Aquarium is elite, I learned. Many publications have it as the best in the country.
I haven't been like meaning to go, but I have a couple pals there that I would love to visit. Do you want to shout out Bitchin' Sauce? Maybe get some sauce?
Oh, that's right. Oh my God. I haven't had Bitchin' Sauce since I left the state of Washington. It's hard to find in New York. Perhaps even not available at all in New York. But yeah, shout out to my guy. Oh, I can't remember his name. My guy in Carlsbad who sent me so much Bitchin' Sauce for no reason. That was so cool. So yeah, if we can get that happening again, that would be sweet. Because I do love Bitchin' Sauce. It's a great product.
We should get sponsored by Bitchin' Sauce.
You absolutely should. Shout out the Georgia Tech bookstore. I bought some deodorant there today because I ran out of deodorant. That was pretty cool. Shout out the woman. There was a woman on the Jumbotron today at the Braves game who had a shirt that said, "This is your sign from God that I'm hot." And I thought that was amazing.
I will say, I know you're not done, but this is the best outro we've ever had on the pod.
By
And there have been
far.
Yeah.
56
By far.
episodes.
Wow. And I have the best shout outs. Shout out to me, I guess, for doing this.
Yeah. Oh, shout out to girls.
Shout out to girls. I see what you're doing out there, girls. And, I want to say that I don't agree with what the government has done to you, but I will always be in your corner.
Very puritanical
on
what the
girls.
government's done to you.
Speak on it. Yeah, it really is.
You should drink Sanzo, Matthew. Now that you're in New York.
Sanzo? Please explain.
It's very good. I believe. I hope I didn't fuck it up. It's like I think it's supposed to be like LaCroix-esque, but it's like the first Asian inspired sparkling. It's very good. They have mango, lychee, calamansi.
Oh shit! Okay.
Which is like lime, lemon. I think.
So they invented sparkling water, but Asianly.
Correct.
You heard it here, folks. Oh, they have it in Seattle. Wow. All right.
I guess. I mean, if it's gonna be anywhere, it'll be in Seattle.
Mikey, we gotta go to that Half Lion Brewery one of these days too, and get one of those. Whatever that was we had that last game.
At the game, yeah. They have a at Whole Foods and Food Universe and Healthy Choice and Junzi Kitchen. They got them all over.
Food Universe sounds very made up.
Yeah, I don't think any of these.
Okay, here I'm going to ask you one more question for both of you. Have either of you ever been to Philadelphia? Because that's where I'm going next. So I need some insight.
I feel like I've heard. What was it? I don't know. Like.
Okay, cool.
This could be way off. I've heard like Seattle, but blacker and like dirty, like gross.
I've heard dirty for sure. Yeah, I like dirty.
Like they have.
That's one of my.
What do they have? What are those things outside? Ticks? No.
Oh shit! Okay.
What?
Now I'm out. I'm out on Philly.
What are we talking about?
Yeah.
I don't know. Philadelphia
well,
sounds
I'll
cool,
figure it out.
Besides the must.
Yeah, it's gonna be hot.
Well, if you want to go to Seattle but dirtier, Tacoma is always available. Tacoma, I love it.
Wow. Yeah, I haven't been to Tacoma in a long time, but I'll check it out. All right. Well, thank you guys. That was really insightful. I know there's other people. I know Kate has Philly connections. I'll ask Kate, but I was hoping to get one last recommendation from y'all before I say goodbye to your beautiful faces.
I think I have a crush on someone who lives in Philadelphia who's very prominent.
Let's go. It is the Philly fanatic. I'm gonna out Mikey right away. Mikey's trying to clap some. Mikey's trying to clap some fanatic cheeks.
Green cheeks, yeah. Hit it up.
And who was it? Japanese Breakfast lived there for.
That's true. They are from Philly. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the last story I'll tell you guys. I was wearing. So like I was telling you earlier, I just dress normally when I go to baseball games. Like I don't do the like button up for no reason. So I was wearing a Japanese Breakfast T-shirt, and one of the Yankees PR guys looks at me and he goes, "Oh, Japanese Breakfast," and I was like, "Yeah, have you heard of them?" And he goes, "Yeah, didn't like them." Like, okay, good talk. Thank you,
Matthew. Have you ever seen Deuce Bigelow, European Gigolo?
Oh man, if I have, I would have been 12 years old. I have no memory of any specifics.
Yeah, I don't know if I have either.
That movie defines Japanese Breakfast as something different than the band, and so when I found out it was a band, I was very surprised that it had a different meaning. And you should not Google what it means based on that movie. I promise you that. It's a Rob Schneider movie.
Will.
Nobody should watch Rob Schneider content.
Guys, did we know about Kyle Lewis? Did we talk about that? Is that where we were so down? I feel like I just saw maybe it wasn't Kyle Lewis. I saw that some Lewis was getting an air cast put on.
That would be Damian Lewis of the Seattle Seahawks.
Yep. Thank fucking
Oh,
God.
that's not good.
Mikey, you're the last person I expected to pull a Seahawks reference on this podcast. That's my business.
Seahawks offensive lineman too, like not even a well-known guy.
It's just on Twitter. I don't like the Seahawks anymore.
Well, shout out Damian Lewis. I hope you're okay. That sucks.
We need him this year.
And shout out to girls.
So that's what I'm saying. I said that. Hold on. I can tell.
I hate when girls
I can
die.
tell you exactly when I said that. Let me pull this up. I want to know how long I've been woke. It was
2015.
No, 14. It was way earlier than that. It was way earlier
11.
than that.
Damn, Matthew's
11 is 11 is the best bet. Shout out to girls. #girls was tweeted on April 19th, 2013. So coming up on 10 years of me being an ally.
Wait.
10 years being woke.
I thought that was a Young Thug tweet. Was that you?
No, shout out to girls. #girls is me. Young Thug is I hate when girls die.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You
can look it up.
Wow, you're
a girl. So I was in high school when I tweeted this, and a girl that I went to high school with responded to it. And she said, "Oh, hey, Matthew." So that's pretty cool.
That's pretty iconic, dude.
Shout out to her. She is a girl, so by definition.
DM that to me, and I'll retweet it. Yeah.
Okay.
Matthew is a trendsetter.
You know what? You're hearing it more and more.
All right,
Mikey,
I'm gonna wrap this up, guys. Yeah, I gotta wrap us up. I got one other thing I gotta do before I go to bed. I'm Evan. You can find me on Twitter at Evan James Audio. You can find Matthew at M Robertson 22. You can find Anders, who's dude. I said it wrong at the top of this, and as soon as the words came out of my mouth, I'm like, I pronounced it wrong. Roberson.
It's a confusing one.
Roberson.
I'm also really bad at correcting people because I have too much Northwest politeness in me.
I should know. I edited the podcast with you on it for like months before I was even on it. So I, of all people, should know because I've heard you say it. But anyways, you can find Anders at Anders Jorstad. You can find Mikey at _Kuya Mikey. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get podcasts, wherever it is you stream. Additionally, support the podcast on Patreon by going to patreon.com/neversunnyin Seattle. I will post the links for that, as well as the links for the Discord in the description here on YouTube, as well as on Anchor, anywhere you find the podcast. Thank you, Go Mariners. Thank you, Matthew. We're excited to have you here. We're going to try and get you back on the Lookout Landing Pod as well in the near future.
Yes, absolutely.
Go Mariners.
Bye.